Good morning, students. Today I'm going to start your first chapter from your Flamingo book, that is the last lesson, which is written by a French writer, Alphonse Daudet, who was born in 1840 in France and he took his last breath at 1897. The French writer Alphonse Daudet was born in Nimes, which is in southern France now. He had a fairly depressing boyhood due to his father, who was a silk manufacturer. Alphonse began his professional life as a school teacher but soon gave it up, for he found the pupil extremely unruly. The writer Alphonse Daudet is famous for creating short stories and novels with a charming mixture of realism, humor, and sentiment. His characters and themes often reflect his love for simple, ordinary people. Very tender images of life shines in his writing. Daudet enlisted in the army to fight the Franco-Prussian War. In the last lesson, Daudet shows the change in France's fortunes through the eyes of a small boy and his last French lesson. The setting of the story is an unnamed town in Alsace, and the story takes place near the beginning of the Prussian occupation of Alsace and Lorraine in about 1873. Now, introduction of chapter. The last lesson is a sentimental story of national pride and the importance of education. It is a simple story from the memory of a young schoolboy. However, it deals with a great issue of German occupation of France. Dialogues are used effectively, particularly M. Hamel's language. Citing the language is the key to their vision. Mr. Hamel suggests that France can maintain its national identity even under the German rule if they are able to hold onto their native language, and hence the scholarship of language is crucial. The story also makes a point of not taking education for granted. The narrator described how sorry I was for not learning my lessons. Upon discovering that Mr. Hamel was to be replaced, an important link is made between language, education, and national pride, suggesting perhaps that a love for one's country is also something that should not be taken for granted. Due to its context, last lesson holds a contemporary relevance in and is a emotional powerful story dealing with great issue in a simple narrative. Student, now the chapter summary of the chapter. The narrator, Franz, which is a small boy, started for school very late that morning. He feared his class teacher, M. Hamel. He would question the student on participle. The narrator didn't know even the first word about them. He feared of scolding. He thought to run away and spend the day out of doors. The weather was very warm and bright that day. On second thought, he decided to go to school. As Franz walked past the town hall, he saw a big crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all the bad news had come from there. People got the news of lost battle and other important information only from there. Usually, when the school began, there was lot of hustle and bustle, opening and closing of desks. The lessons were repeated loudly in union, created a lot of commotion. But now it was so still. Franz could depend on the commotion to get on his desk without being noticed. But now he went in before everybody. He blushed and was quite frightened, but nothing happened. And instead of punishing, M. Hamel saw and asked him very kindly to take his seat. M. Hamel was in formal clothes that he wore only on inspection and prize days. The whole school seemed quite strange and silent. The most surprising thing was the presence of the village elders. They were sitting quietly on the back benches. M. Hamel mounted the chair and spoke in a great gentle tone. My children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. He told them that an order had come from Berlin. Only German would be taught in the schools of Alsace. The new master would join next day. It was the last French lesson. He wanted them to be very attentive. The narrator felt sorry for not learning his lesson in French. He never liked his book. He didn't have any interest in grammar and history. But now he developed a fascination for them. Even he started liking M. Hamel. The idea that he would not teach them anymore made Franz forget all his ruler. He even forgot how cranky his teacher was. Now it was his turn to recite. But he got mixed up and confused. M. Hamel didn't scold him. M. Hamel showed his concern that the people of Alsace generally gave no importance to French. They put off learning their own native language. France was not only exception. Many others were also guilty on this account. He declared that French was the most beautiful language in the world. It was the clearest and the most logical. They must guard it among themselves and never forget it. It appeared that M. Hamel wanted to give them all he knew before going away. All at once, the church clock struck 12. The trumpets of the Persian soldiers sounded under the windows. M. Hamel stood up, very pale, in his chair. He tried to speak, but something choked him. He couldn't speak. Then he turned to the blackboard. He took a piece of chalk and wrote as large as he could, Vive la France, long live France. Then without a word he made a gesture to them with his hand. School is dismissed, you may go. This was the story, children. It's so touching, so beautiful story. Now this is the expressions which is used in the text by the author. In a great dread of, in the immense fear or anxiety, in union, in agreement or harmony, counted on, relied on, or was sure of, a great bustle, a lot of activity, thumb at the edge, folded at the corners, reapproach ourselves, criticize or blame ourselves. That's all in this class, children. Read the text nicely so that you may understand. If you get any problem or any doubts, you can contact me. Thank you.